G'day, folks. So I had a yarn with Stephanie Travers. She's a chairperson for Voices for Central Coast Disability. And we talked about her disability with Spina Bifida from birth and how she deals with it now. And also having a good talk about general disability accessibility to concerts and events and along the lines of that. It was awesome having a yarn. And proudly to announce that the Keep Rolling podcast is now sponsored by Permobil Australia that provide wheelchairs and other assistive tech. And I've been riding in these wheelchairs for nearly a decade now. I've tried other wheelchairs, but I'm going to ride with nothing but the best. So, cheers Permobil, and righto, let's get into it. Righto, we're rolling. Stephanie Travers, thanks for coming down.
Thanks, Jake. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I met you last week for the first time at the NDIS Participant Reference Group. So, yeah, and I'm glad I ran and bumped into you. And, you know, we had a bit of a general yarn and because I thought you were originally from, like, I thought you lived down Sydney because I thought, you know, this is an interesting person that, you know, I'd want to have a yarn with and yeah, and now you told me that you're living up here on the Central Coast, yeah?
Yeah, I mentioned in that meeting that I was from both Western Sydney and like had just moved up the coast. So I'd been on the NDIS in two areas.
Right.
Which is what I said in my intro. But, you know, I moved up April last year. So,
okay.
Yeah, pretty much a newbie compared to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
pretty
a local
green
at
up
all.
here.
Yeah, green as.
Yeah. So whereabouts were you from down in Western Sydney, and had you been from Western Sydney your whole life, or?
Yeah, so Parramatta born and bred.
Yep.
Grew up in North Parramatta. And my nan's in Granville, still down there. Moved up to like Hornsby, Waitara area for a little while, and then ended up in the Hills District, which is Castle Hill, Rouse Hill, Kellyville, where they're building a new train there at the moment.
That area is really coming up with the infrastructure.
So that's where my first house was, and then sold that and moved up here in April last year.
Yep. Yeah, okay. So Western Sydney, and talking about Parramatta, you're not a Eels fan, are you? Or?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, Jesus. We'll leave that discussion.
We lived right up the road from where they used to train.
Yeah.
So, I got to meet like the old team, the old good Eels, like Luke Burt and, you know, Hindmarsh and all that. But the new team, not so much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The new stadium looks pretty nice though, so.
Yeah, they did a good job, except for they knocked my pool down, where I like to swim down at Parramatta local pool. They knocked the pool down to put the stadium in. So
nice. Thanks, Eels.
Thanks, Eels. Yeah, no more pool. Yeah. No more free community pool. Oh, well, that's life.
Yeah, that's life. So how are you locking it up here now on the coast?
I love it. So it's really good. I've never had the sense of community up here, like down there, that I've been able to form up here pretty quickly. So I don't know whether that's because Sydney had more people or being in my early 20s, maybe I wasn't looking for a community. I was just, you know, busy working and living and trying to be normal, put in inverted commas. But, you know, I've really made some good friends, good sense of community. Everyone's really welcoming up here. So
yeah, that's great, you know. It's a pretty chill place up here, up on the Central Coast, you know, nowhere near as busy as Sydney and some of the areas down there, but it is growing up around here too, like with the infrastructure around the Gosford end and also up this end, which is good, but it's still got that good balance.
I came up here thinking there would be no traffic, and that was part of the reason why I left Sydney. And then I come up here and I'm in a bit where you got to hit some bad traffic to get to it. Like
Tuggerah Strait?
So like Tuggerah Strait, you know, through Wyong on Pacific Highway, and there's roadworks on the M1. It's to get to Sparks Road. So I'm just like, I had to pick the area where you got to go through the traffic. So it's better than Sydney, but it's still bad. So
I know they're going to open up the roads soon, but that's been in the works for years. But hopefully they do it sooner than later, like going through, we're at bottlenecks going from Tugger Strait to Wyong.
Yeah.
And then it's just stuck there for ages. But apparently they're going to open up the bridge and open up through Wyong to the end, and right through to Warnervale. They're going to have 4 lanes going all the way through, but who knows when that's coming through.
Yes. These governments always think about it after they build the houses.
Nah, it's always the way.
But it's all right. It's cool. It's better than Sydney, but it's still not as easy as I thought it would be.
I
thought it would be like super cruisy coastal town traffic. Yeah, nah. It's still just as busy.
So just wanted to talk a little about yourself and your disability, and if you just wanted to elaborate on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I was born with Spina Bifida lipomyelomeningocele. So that's a birth defect that's like a neural tube defect. So it happens quite early during a pregnancy and the spine doesn't form right. There's like a gap where the spinal cord comes out. And where mine came out is at level L5S1. So it's quite low down, which is good. It gives me the ability to use my arms and chest, and I'm not paralysed. But I had a tumour on top of it, and then in later life have had a complication called tethered cord syndrome. So because the spinal cord came out and there's a tumour on top, is all stuck together. So there was nerve damage straight away at birth, and then as I've grown and the spinal cord's gotten more stretched, I've had progressive degeneration as well. So I was pretty much walking around with an invisible disability, through my primary school years and majority of secondary school. I had some problems like toileting problems and things like that. Couldn't feel parts of my feet, had to have plaster casts because I had muscle problems and things like that. But a lot of that happened, I missed a bit of school, but a lot of that happened away from my friends. So I was able to pass pretty much as normal apart from having like a limp.
Yep.
And then progressively, as my tethered cord syndrome got worse, had to move to crutches and leg braces. And then when I was 25, I decided to have a surgery to try and
remove the tumour, or
the tumour. They call they debulk it, so they can't ever get rid of it because it's mixed in with nerves. But they could debulk it, so it's like not as big. Anyway, so went in to have this surgery of further debulking and detethering of my cord, and ended up with spinal fluid leaks. So ended up with having revision surgery, had another leak, had a revision surgery, had another leak, had a revision surgery, had another leak, had 4 surgeries in 1 year. Jeez. On the same spot. And I've pretty much been, I can still get out of the wheelchair, but progressively needing the wheelchair more since then.
Okay, so you were having those surgeries where you had those 4 progressive leaks. So what was the span of time over with those leaks and going in for surgery and the recovery? And
I had the active surgery was a whole year with rehabs in between. I had 2 lots of surgeries in one go, rehab, 2 lots of surgery, and then was in rehab for an entire year after that. So that was 2015, 16.
For an entire year?
Yeah, well, on and off. So a couple months in actual rehab and then on day programs for 3 days a week going in there. So, but it's took up 2 years of my life, 2015, 16. So then 2017, I decided...
Where was the facility?
I was in Hornsby. So I was at Mount Wilga in Hornsby. So I was I'm luckily... which we might talk about, I guess, in a minute, is I've always had private health insurance. It's something that my parents instilled in me, was vital because spina bifida, especially as an adult surgery, not many people know about it. So I had to pretty much mostly be able to choose my surgeon. So I was luckily enough to be able to go to a private rehabilitation facility. So I did day program there till the end of 2016. Yeah. I was just really deteriorated and really in a lot of pain, and it was mostly trying to get my pain down and work my strength back up because I'd been bedbound for the whole of 2015. So when you're leaking, you can't sit upright.
Yeah. Because then your equilibrium just goes out of whack.
Yeah, your whole pressure, you feel like your head's going to explode. So, they thought, maybe she's formed hydrocephalus or something, but it was actually low pressures, so it was actually leaking. But it felt like my brain was going to explode, and I fainted every time I sat or stood up. So, yeah.
And how was that on you mentally? That would have been a bit up and down, yeah?
I'm really lucky is I've got a really good mum. I didn't have to do it on my own. I had my mum, in that hospital every single day. And where I lacked strength, she was able to, be my advocate and take that on. I found it affected me the next year more than it did going through it, because when you're going through an emergency and you're kind of like, I just have to focus on the here and now, and there's a bit of adrenaline and you're going from crisis to crisis, surgery to surgery, you've got a momentum and a path and a goal. I found the rehab bit really hard. I don't know if you found that experience as well, but it was just mentally draining to ever think that you're going to get a normal life back.
I feel you there.
Yeah.
Because I went through the similar stages like that through rehab, but with me, because it's when I first had my accident, and just not knowing certain limitations of my body, and because it's still healing, so then certain nerve pathways were still coming back.
Yeah.
So a little bit of sensations and movements and stuff like that was slowly coming back. So that was a little bit frustration. There was a fair bit of frustration in there, because it's just fear of the unknown and just...
What if this never comes back?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then over time, because it's for myself and what I had been told, it takes 2 years for the spinal cord swelling to fully go down. And then that's when that's when you're at your limits of knowing this level of sensation, or I'm physically able to move X, Y, and Z now. So, but then you hear of people that have spinal cord injuries 5 years post, and then they're like, I can feel my left or right foot.
Yeah.
If they're a quad para or whatever kind of injury it might be there. So
I think it's something that has a lot of, a lot of things will happen in the future, about, how those neural pathways work, and if you're not completely severed, is there capacity to fix that? Like, there's so much research going on.
That's right.
In terms of spina bifida, not so much. There used to be. But, we're facing a position at the moment where it's a congenital condition, and a lot of babies are screened for it. And, a lot of mothers are offered the option to terminate the pregnancy.
Okay.
So we've actually got a whole generation of babies not being born at the moment. It's because it's screened for in tandem with Down syndrome and things like that. And they, a new parent gets scared when you go, your child could have intellectual disability, hydrocephalus, fluid on the brain, not be able to walk, have multiple surgeries, have a horrible life. And then, they think they're being compassionate by terminating. So,
that's a very, very tough decision to make.
Yeah, and I'm on a lot of forums for spina bifida, including in America, and I see new mums on there all the time coming for reassurance, going, what kind of lives do you guys have? And we're like, well, I have a job, I have this, we've got degrees, we've got, and we try to go,
It's all about the
You might have a few more hospital visits, but you're going to still have an amazing child at the end. And what the worst case scenario they tell you is they have to tell you the worst case scenario so that you don't sue them later. But the majority of spina bifida people I know, and I have massive spina bifida community that is our age, because a lot of us were born in the 80s and are making it to adulthood now. And each and every one of them is an amazing, intelligent, capable person, whether they're in a chair or not.
Yeah, because I know
that
some
opens
people
up
in
a
their
whole
40s.
other kettle of worms.
Yeah.
That termination stuff.
Yeah, it's very, very tough. But I know some people that are, in their 40s that have got spina bifida, still rolling around, still working, doing what they have to do to get through life, and punching goals and getting ahead. And just getting up like everybody else that's able-bodied and getting up and walking around and just eating life, just taking it all in and just doing what they have to do to progress and go forward, so...
Yeah, for a lot of us, it's intellectually we have the capacity to work. For a lot of us, it's energy. So I find that's the biggest thing for us. And those with tethered cord, it's a bit of pain. But for most spina bifs, you'll find that the factor that affects with work, and the primarily one that affects their lives in general, is fatigue. So it's just having to pace what we do, and you're having a day off, and you're just doing things a bit later at 11:30 in the morning instead of 8:30.
Is that with yourself? Like you get a bit of fatigue here and there, and you got to sort of juggle the hours how your work ends in
pretty much
the day,
everyone I know with spina bifida.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much across the board.
I have a friend that works for in the city for Colonial Super, but she works Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So she have break days. We find it hard to travel long distances. Concentrate on screens for a long time because that's the fluid thing in the brain.
Yep. And the amount of blood flow as well when you're sitting down all the time. Yeah. It's not like you're getting the blood flow running through like an able-bodied cruising around. So
yeah, it's a bit of combination of the sitting, the nerve damage, and the fluid, the CSF pressure thing. I think it's probably more the CSF pressure thing because, sometimes with normal paraplegia, you don't get that fatigue. So, for me, mine is mostly pain and fatigue that stops me from kicking my goals, but I'm still aiming to kick my goals. It still hasn't stopped me really from achieving anything I wanted to achieve. It just makes me a bit slower.
Hey, and talking about achieving, so you're the chairperson for the Voices of Central Coast Disability.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive stuff. So do you want to tell us about the actual organisation itself and what it does? Like, if does it do advocacy? Is it direct service support? If you want to go down that route.
So when I came to the coast in April, I had a friend that already lived here, and then she knew I was really into disability rights because I'd been fighting with Tic-Tac about trying to buy tickets online, and I started this group and stuff like that. So she says, "Come on board. I know you're really
I'm hearing you.
Disability rights." Yeah, I will talk about that right in a minute.
Yep.
But so that was last May. I went to my first meeting for this group, and I didn't realise it wasn't already formed, but it was just kind of like a working group to see if we could form a group. It was running off Ability Links funding. And there was a project manager who was interested in gathering a bunch of like-minded people together to start a peer group. What's called a Disability People and Family Organisation now, DPFO, according to the NDIS.
So that's getting in and talking to the individuals and their families and wives, husbands, carers and everything else in between?
It was really more about making a group that's entirely user-led, entirely led by people with a disability and their families and carers, and that they would run it, and then they would represent the interests of a community. Because we had found that a lot of the large providers in the area that had started off as family networks had been taken over as big businesses.
Well, large NDIS providers?
And providers.
Okay.
And so these are now multi-million-dollar businesses that no longer represent the little people. So, and we're not really the little people because the scheme's about us, right? So, we had to go back to...
That's it. It's all about choice and control for the individual with a disability. That's what the NDIS is for.
Yeah, so it builds on what's called the peer movement in the UK and the US, where people with a disability and their families, we say and their families because some people with a disability don't have the capacity to speak for themselves.
Okay.
So people with a disability and their families wanted to take back control, especially in relation to funding and promises that were made by previous governments and the UN and all that stuff, that we would have control over our lives. So at the moment, we're only a year old, and we're more about systemic advocacy. We don't have the funding to do one-on-one yet, but we know the networks and stuff to refer out, and you can self-refer to those places. So we're doing inclusion and awareness campaigns. So I'm speaking to you right now. I've spoken to TAFE, spoken at...
So do you have it sort of split up?
things.
Like, how many of you guys are within the organisation?
There's a rotating team of about 20.
That's great.
Which and we have meetings fortnightly, and there's about 20 rotating around in and out. A good core team of, about 12 within that, and then a few others that have come and gone. And our activities, we do free educational activities as well. So we've got the systemic advocacy side, inclusion and awareness training, and the education. So that's educating people with a disability, families, people new to the NDIS. What is it? What terminology do we need to use? Having guest speakers come in to speak about filling in the forms if they have to do that. We usually have a topic each month that we do. And these are activities called Chatability.
Yep.
So they're educational mostly.
Okay. So some of the people that are with Voices for Central Coast Disability, so some of them have professional backgrounds like occupational therapists, physios, or it's general people with disability. Like, what's the type of people that are with your organisation?
Yeah, so we started off saying it would only be people with a disability and their families.
Yeah.
But in doing that, we realised... Because
at the end of the day, that they're the voices that should be heard first and foremost.
Yeah, so, and that still is the case. So, at the membership of the group is people with disability, and that ranges from... Spina Bifida to cerebral palsy to autism spectrum to family members that are dealing with intellectual disability. We've got psychosocial and mental illness. So we cover quite a little bit of a cross-section in it, and we range from ages 20 to 64. So within that core team of 20 that we've had come in and out. So that's great. Then we realised we had a bunch of allies. And these weren't really providers that wanted to get on board, but usually people that worked for providers. So we have someone that works for health, one works for TAFE, one that works for a provider, and one that is a person with a disability that also works for a provider. So we realised that we needed to allow our allies to get involved. And I took this off the LGBTQIA platform, is that they allow allies that support the group to be involved. But I haven't allowed them to become full members. So they're what's called associate members, but they're still volunteering their time, coming to meetings, giving us ideas. But ultimately, it has to be disability first, because the whole point is that able-bodied people took over the old, all the old family networks, like CCDN, and they became multi-million-dollar providers, and the whole aim is to keep this still grounded in the community and with the people who it serves.
That's right. It's good keeping that focal point.
We have to be number one. So while I've allowed them to come in as associates, they won't be full voting members once we incorporate, which is soon. So
yeah, right. Yeah. So that's on the horizon.
Yeah, the aim is September. So the aim is when we find out about the next round of NDIS ILC grants, whether we stay tied to our Auspice Association. So we're tied with Community Disability Alliance Hunter.
Yep.
And because they are an incorporated association, they hold our grant money at the moment. And they've also mentored us because they were the first disability people's organisation really in New South Wales, and really the first one to be involved with teaching people about the NDIS. And they were involved in the pilot up there and pretty much teaching people from the ground up what the hell this thing is, you know, and how to navigate it.
Yeah, and
so
that's what it's all about.
They've done a great job up there.
Yeah, because it is tricky, the NDIS, to navigate, and just because the NDIS has almost got its own set language, and you're got to know and so just how to fit into the reasonable and necessary scope of what they're looking for, and sometimes that's a little bit hard for the person with disability or the families and carers, like to articulate, you know, their disability and what their needs are and what the services that they need to get them across the board, and it works differently for everyone. Some people can get it across and they get a good package, or some people get it across and they get a bad package anyway, and then they got to fight to get what services they need because they did have a good package the year before, and it rolls over, and then they talk to a different plan or whoever it may be, and then stuff gets chopped and changed, and then they got to fight to get that realigned again. But it's all about that journey and the process of that, because the NDIS, it's a tricky one, and it's relatively new. Everybody's learning, so from both sides of the fence, but we're getting there. But it's good having people like yourself on the Central Coast and raising the voices of many people with disabilities from all different spectrums, because, hey, you know, high tide raises all canoes, huh?
Yeah. So we got to keep it. The first aim right now is to educate, you know, the people struggling, and make sure that they've got. So there was a strong peer support focus, because, you know, sharing everyone, like each other's experiences. You know, if you go, oh, you know, I put this in my plan and it wasn't acceptable as reasonable, but then we reworded it and it was. If you learn that from other people or each other, then, you know, it's an invaluable resource. And, like, even the NDIA has picked up on the importance of peer support and peer networks. They released a whole ILC grant round just for peer support groups.
That's right.
So, you know, it's super important. So that's number one. And then the second is making sure it's still in the consciousness, awareness, and that it also doesn't take away the fight in the other domains and the other areas. So we, you know, we still are a group of people that experience discrimination in other areas, and the NDIS is not a quick fix pill you threw money at and it takes that all away. I mean, we've all been fighting for 30 years to get basics, you know, and I'll segue into this, I guess, about, you know, the fact that we can't book tickets online to go to a concert. You know, that's a systemic area of discrimination that's just gone unnoticed. It went or it did go noticed, and no one spoke up about it. Yeah,
because I know it's hard sometimes for where I've had the same story also when I've been ringing up various ticket vendors from different organisations, and where, you know, when you're talking about your disability and sort of where, depending on the stadium or wherever it may be, trying to get in their head the imagery of what your disability is and what your needs are, and no, I can't sit there because of X, Y and Z, and sometimes you just get shut down on the phone from the other end of these people from these ticket vendors. But, you know, with my experience, you know, 70-80% of the time it's been fine, but then you get those hiccups along the way.
Our experience started because there was a high demand event and the line was closed down completely for like 5 days. So, you know, the fact that you got people with a disability ringing up 5 days straight only to be hung up on 100 times, we just felt was ridiculous. So, you know, there's a guy called Chris in Victoria who started a petition, and it was around the same time I was really annoyed about this was happening.
Yeah.
And then so I connected in with him and I said, look, can we advocate and do this together? I'm in New South Wales, in Victoria, we've got a bit of clout, we've got 2 states going on. I then presented that petition to my members of parliament up here. He did that to his down there. The response he got was to go to discrimination. The response I got was it got passed to Liesl Tesh.
Oh, okay. What, and take it to the Human Rights Commission, or?
Yeah, he got told to take it to Victorian Human Rights from his members, and I got the ear of Liesl Tesh, so that's how I ended up getting connected in with Liesl Tesh, who I didn't know was the member up here, and I didn't know was a Paralympian, but then I got
she's
to
great.
Connect in with her, and she's great. So she and Yasmin Catley from Swansea, member for Swansea, arranged a roundtable with the industry. So Live Nation was there, the Opera House, Sydney Festival, Accessible Arts, People with Disability Australia, a bunch of other independent advocates, Kudos Bank Arena, and everyone was in, Ticketmaster, Ticketek, everyone was in a room together to discuss how this wasn't working for people. Not only that we're on hold for days, not only can we not buy online, those that are capable and can, but that once we get there, we're in segregated seating. Sometimes we can't be on the floor with our friends. If we want to go with 6 mates at a time, we're limited to 2 tickets.
Yeah.
So there was I realised and found out it was a bigger issue than just I can't book and the phone line's not being answered. I went, oh my God, there's a whole subset of Australians that can't go out and enjoy entertainment and enjoy music. And I'm a music lover, and it's something that I love to do, and I spend most of my disposable income on.
So when was this held, and was it in Sydney or?
This was held December last year.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we had a state election. We've now got a federal one, so it's all a little bit on hold. And they were Labor members and they didn't win. So there's a few options now. Is that actually out of that meeting, there's a pilot online right now for 2 events at Kudos Bank Arena, Fleetwood Mac and the Military Tattoo. If you go online, you can buy wheelchair tickets for a beta test pilot with Ticketek. That's already happened.
Do you know when the dates are for those events?
I think October and November.
Okay, so we've got some time. That's all right.
Yeah. So the beta test is up to try and buy wheelchair tickets online, but you could still email and still call if you have special needs that aren't on there. So they're just trialling it to see how it goes. And then we made them promise to change the thing from special needs booking to accessible ticket booking, and both companies have changed that. So we've had 2 small wins, and hoping that it rolls out into a bigger cultural change in the industry.
Yep.
But that was only the first roundtable and the first step. So
second step, when is there sort of a plan, or it's waiting for the next election and see what rolls through and then have the discussion for the next step? Or?
Well, for me, it was waiting for a federal election, because I've always seen it as a federal issue, because it is. Well, it's nationwide. It's every state. It's
That's
nationwide.
Right.
And I realised it was not only happening here, it was happening in Melbourne, it was happening in Brisbane. We've now got advocates in 4 states, in Perth, Brisbane, I'm New South Wales, and Chris is in Victoria, all fighting at different areas of speaking to their areas. So I've spoken to the new Australian Human Rights Commissioner, Ben Gauntlet.
Yep.
And he's interested in looking at it at a policy level. Because none of us want compensation, we really don't want to take it to discrimination, because we don't want to be compensated for. We just want the system to change, right?
Well, it'd be good having the power of policy within its realm to get certain things over the line, because then it's blanketed across the nation, hopefully, especially if it goes to human rights.
Yeah.
And then it's righto, Ticketek, righto, all the Live Nation and everybody else. This is how it is now.
Yeah. But human rights, usually you go to, if you want to got a complaint, and it goes through a legal process, and then you go to court, and then you win compensation for being discriminated against. And I felt, even though I have a class of 10 people ready to go, I felt it's not the forum for it, because we're trying to change policy here. None of us want to be compensated. We just want to see it change. So, and
talking about change, I think, I've only seen it within social media and on the internet what Dylan Alcott did with Ability Fest.
Yeah.
Up north. So if you're ever going to be listening to this, Mr. Alcott, it'd be good if you'd be able to bring one in New South Wales.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it'd be good to see that model of what that is. Maybe it'd be good to, if we'd be able to reach out to him and maybe bring him to the table as well to see, because I don't know how Ability Fest was run, but obviously it catered for everyone with disability, and I'm pretty sure the NDIS was behind a little bit of it as well. So it'd be maybe good to get in his ear and have a yarn and see how that model, like to see if we can take anything from that, like if it might assist to future events as well in New South Wales and every other state and territory. I don't know, just throwing that in the atmosphere. So.
I think it really sets the standard for festivals, which is so needed. But I've actually found most festivals to be pretty inclusive. So I've been to 2 or 3 music festivals, which I could have never done before without the chair because I just got too tired. And so I really enjoyed them. And we went to Seen and Heard Festival in Newcastle. It didn't have a platform for wheelchairs, and it didn't have Auslan interpreters and all that kind of stuff that Dylan's festival had. But we found everyone, and there was no OH&S rules there. Like, we wheeled up to the front and people just let us through, and we could see like right at the stage, and that was the joy of it. Was there kind of were no rules.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, I went to a concert, this is 2 years ago now, so, and then it was Alexis on Fire, so that was at the Hordern Pavilion, and there was a platform, and I was at the back, and it was packed, like it was sold out, and they're one of my favourite bands, and when they come on stage, I just looked at my mate and I'm like, even though, yeah, up here this is a good view and everybody can get a good view, the people that are here in wheelchairs and whatnot, but I'm like, I want to be at the front.
Yeah.
So I just, put the chair into gear and, parted through the middle, and everybody was accommodating, got up the front, and it was sort of safe. There was a few people flying over the top here and there, but, it was a good experience because I wanted to get up, up in the face of it and see the band and whatnot, and it was a good experience, So,
yeah. And this is what we're fighting for.
Yeah.
So I'm all right in the wheelchair bit. That's cool. But
do you think if it be like a gate system? I don't know.
But I have a friend called Marlena, and she loves being out the front. Loves it. Like she's our friend in Brisbane who's on this campaign with me. And she's actually just been awarded an ABC scholarship to do a documentary about the issue.
Okay.
Which is awesome.
So is it looking like a safe zone but up the front sort of thing?
Well,
or what?
we're still in discussion about it. So most venues that have this rule of no wheelchairs in general admission have all said, OH&S has said no. You're not allowed down there at all. So we're not at the stage of getting a resolution on that unless we talk about design. At the moment they still want to chuck us up the back. So but in terms of festivals, I found the festivals all right. It's the theatre, and not the theatre, like the other entertainment venues that seem to be hesitant about it, like ANZ Stadium and Kudos, and
really?
Yeah, they're the ones that have the rules of no wheelchairs on the ground in general admission.
Well, I've heard, and this is what I heard from, I can't remember what the ticket vendor was, because I was looking into the Metallica Slipknot tickets.
Yeah.
And there's
actually got a sentence on that, but due to the kinetic nature of the concert, you're not allowed on the ground.
They got a platform.
Yeah.
I've been told they got a raised platform in general admission.
Yeah.
So
you guys aren't allowed on the ground at all. So Marlena was actually kicked out by security and put up the back when she went to the floor of a Pink concert at Kudos Bank Arena.
Really?
She was kicked out, yeah.
So did she take that up to the authorities of...
She's taken Kudos to New South Wales Commission, Australian Human Rights Commission.
Yep.
So her carer was kicked out for advocating for her. Well, they said that he was aggressive, but really he was just being an advocate. She can't speak. She can't go to the toilet without help. She can't eat or drink without support, and they kicked her carer out of the venue.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully...
So and she had VIP tickets to Pink in what was called a Wild Heart Zone, so right down the front. But they said it wasn't safe for her to be down there. But she's... No,
Yeah.
it's funny because she's gone base jumping. She's gone skydiving. She's the first person with cerebral palsy to base jump in Malaysia. And she goes to iFly all the time.
Yeah.
And
depending on the crowd, though, like with my experience and depending on the type of music...
Yeah.
Because just say, for instance, like, I went to Alexis on Fire and the crowd was pretty good. There was a few people that flew over the top of me. That was fine. But then I went and saw Parkway Drive where the crowd is a bit full on and I wanted to be front and centre. And then they talked me out of it and I was being a little bit stubborn, but I'm like, I should just... Because I sort of know what the crowd's like.
Yeah.
And I did park to the side, I did have a good view still. Like, this was it wasn't at Enmore, it was at the Metro, just in Sydney CBD. And I'm glad I listened, because once Parkway come out and the amount of people that were in the mosh and going nuts and the bodies flying everywhere, I was like, I'm glad I stayed back here.
I think you're actually like the most protected person there, though. Like, you come with your own roll cage.
It's pretty heavy equipment and keeps me safe to some degree, but I think I would have copped a few kicks in the head if I ended up in the middle of that mosh pit.
Yeah, true.
It's all good. But
so it's all about the individual, like any other able-bodied person in that mosh makes the decision. I'm going to make that risk of being in a mosh and I might get kicked in the head, right?
Yeah.
And
like any
so
able-bodied,
you guys
that's
should
right.
still be able to have that choice.
That's
my argument. We can't wrap everyone in a wheelchair in cotton wool.
That's right.
We don't wrap everybody else in that mosh pit in cotton wool.
Yeah.
You know, and this was a Pink concert. There were 7-year-olds on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, like, it just seemed really, really ridiculous.
It's like anybody with a disability or able-bodied. You pick your
Metallica
poison
and all
of
that.
where you're going to sit because you're like, the crowd might get a bit full on here. Or like the Pink concert where, you know, they're not going to be jumping around like at a heavy metal concert or anything like that. So why kick us out?
Yeah.
You know? But, hey, we might...
Move on. We can move on.
Yeah, okay. We might jump back into the NDIS.
Yeah.
So, the NDIS... How long have you been on it? And is it working for you? Did you have some trials and tribulations at the start with your first package? And how is it working for you now?
So, I mean, this is only my second plan. So, compared to some of you guys on the coast, I'm running a bit behind because I started in Western Sydney, right? So, that was rolled out later. So, I found the first plan pretty easy. Because I had that diagnosis that fit that checkbox criteria. So my disability, to get access, I just said I had spina bifida, gave him a report, and I was given access straight away because it was on that list of things.
Was it a report from your GP or a specialist? Or?
I gave them a GP and then one specialist letter. And so that's all I needed to provide, and walked into a planning meeting with no idea what to expect, didn't know the terminology, wasn't involved in my disability community in Western Sydney, as I said, wasn't part of a peer network, had no education of what it was about, apart from I'd been in the Centrelink world and knew a bit of terminology about that. So I guess that gave me a little bit of an advantage. And Parramatta at that time was training other workers, so my planning meeting...
So was your meeting at the agency's office?
Yeah, so I had to actually go to them at Parramatta. So that was uniting. And they were training other LACs at the same time. I was meeting my LAC, so I wasn't really listened to a lot. So got access actually under two streams, the spina bifida, and at that time, because I have a little bit of a depression, mental health history, I was given access under that stream as well. And my first plan was really adequate, but I got handed 2 pages of a plan and literally had no idea what to do with it. So under the old scheme, I'd gotten a bit of equipment. I was under the CAPS thing where I got money in my bank account to go spend on continence aids or whatever. And I only had like a basic cleaner, and I'd been attached to my local community house care for some minor mods. So it was like a stair rail and like that's it. So my experience in the disability provider world was actually quite limited, because when I got sick, my mum did everything. And before then I was really independent, and it was just basic home maintenance and a rail and crutches. And at that time I didn't have the chair. So...
Because that's a bit tricky, and just not knowing where your disability is going to go. Like when you were walking at
mine
one
had
stage.
just changed, yeah.
And now you're in a wheelchair. So.
Yeah, which is why I brought the report, because it was like, okay, well, I've now changed, and in this plan I need a wheelchair. So I actually... And
trying to get the NDIS, get their head around it of how it works.
So I actually found it okay, and they took me verbatim pretty much like what I needed, which now would be unheard of. You would need to provide a report for everything. So I was able to get, OTs to write up the equipment I needed. And then 5 months into my new plan, I bought my house. But for that 5 months, I didn't use workers because I didn't know I could or what to do. Didn't want to set something up when I was changing regions. And I was living with my sister, so she was doing all the shopping. Like she was cleaning the house.
So you're talking about attending carers, yeah?
She was doing the laundry. So my sister and her partner were doing a lot of what I need it for now. Yeah.
So you're talking about, all your domestic care or just general needs care, yeah? Yeah.
So a lot of that, I'd moved into my sister because I'd sold my house. So I was between houses when I started my first plan, and my sister was doing everything. So I didn't start using it. And then I didn't realise if you don't use it, they kind of take it away. So when I came to the coast, it was invaluable. So it helped me get set up because I can't move furniture around, unpack boxes, and then I set up a really good system of workers if I needed to travel long distances, and the cleaning and all that kind of stuff.
So it's a pretty good system with the carers that you got now.
Yeah, so I was able to set that up, and that was the first time really I had used support workers in that way. So because I didn't get any grant money because I wasn't sick enough in the old system. I didn't have a bad enough spina bifida. And then when I did have bad enough spina bifida, they went, wait for the NDIS. So there was that gap where my mum did everything because...
was that just out of the... Oh, well, that's...
This was during my surgery and the rehab
I was going to ask that. Yeah,
and they said, wait till the NDIS comes to your area because we're not giving any new packages out under ADAC now anyway. So...
Yeah, because they had a time cut off of where their funding and money was.
And we got cut in that middle. We got cut in the middle of that in-between period, which just happened to be when I needed care every day. Like when I went home from... Rehab is when I needed care every day. If I didn't have my mum, I don't know what I would have done. Probably would have ended up in hospital for longer or just stayed in rehab or whatever. So, yeah, that was a tough time and a lot of pressure on my mum. And I didn't drive for 3 years, so I could get myself around, had no taxi vouchers, no community transport, no nothing. So it all was put on my family because we were told, wait for NDIS. So that was not good. But when NDIS came around, I was a bit better, but needed it for equipment, home mods to the new joint, and now it's invaluable. I found when I went for my second plan, what I feared happened would happen. I didn't use it all, even though I said I was living with informal supports during that time, so I didn't need it all. And now I need it all because I'm living independently.
Yeah, because they start docking.
So I got a cut of like
down.
20 grand a core between first and second year, and that's still cut. I appealed the therapies because they didn't give me. I've been having therapy every week, and they only gave me 9 weeks of it. when I went in for second plan. So I'd had it every week, and then they took it away because I was capacity building funding.
So getting towards the end of your plan that you currently got now, so there's going to be 20K that's you're going to get to the end, and your attendant support carers, they're going to need that extra funding and money, yeah?
Yeah, so luckily I'm self-managed, which I find amazing. And if anyone should be building up capacity, it should be building up the capacity to self-manage because it's so flexible. I know people get scared with accounts or whatnot, but I'm able to budget it out. So, you know, there'll be some weeks I'll use less, some weeks I'll use more. You know, lucky with the NDIA thing that we go to, they pay for that carer for those couple of days. So that saves on my couple of days. So I kind of bank it. So I'm lucky I'm good with budgeting and that kind of stuff. But so hopefully I get to the end and it is adequate. But yeah, I had that 20 grand cut without giving me a chance to really use it for a whole year properly. But like I told them, I've just moved here six months ago and I really haven't had the chance to use it. Yeah. And they didn't give me the chance to use it, and that's what I found frustrating.
Yeah, but as you get towards the end of the plan, like if you're doing your budgets now, you should be able to forecast within that period if you're going to be short X amount because you're using your carers through the week of that amount of period. So hopefully it all works out towards the end of your plan and you can stretch it out.
I'm hoping it could be stretched out because, you know, if it's not, you've got to put it in for a review and that takes 6 months. There's no point. But for me, my main thing with them was the funding for therapies. They just didn't understand that I need therapy every week to keep
occupational therapist or what?
Exercise physiology and physio.
Okay.
So they just didn't understand that my condition is one that you need to keep strengthening and doing the exercises and having the therapy, or it deteriorates. Yeah. Yeah,
you got to really keep on top of it.
Yeah. So I found, you know, lying in bed for that year, my whole body deteriorated.
Yeah, just muscle and weight and everything just.
It's not getting those messages and those and the muscles that I can build up. If I let them go, then, you know, I lose my small ability to walk my 20 meters. You know, and then I'm more chair bound. But then I've also you get shoulder pain, elbow pain, self-propelling everywhere. Yeah, and it's also about keeping all these muscles that you use all the time in good nick. Because otherwise,
especially your shoulders and arms and chest.
Well, the shoulders take it all with the crutches and the wheeling, and if you don't work on them, like I'm not asking for a gym membership to like go get buff. I'm asking to do, you know, proper physiotherapy or proper exercise physiology. Yeah. Anyway, you just want appeal that was funded, and I can't fault the appeal reviewer. She was amazing, and she's the one who nominated me for the NDIS group because she was so impressed with my submission for appeal.
Okay, that's great. And so the NDIS, all in all, it's working for you? Good.
It's working for me, but but I'm not impressed that I had to still fight for some things. Yeah. And those that can't fight miss out. And that's what I'm worried about, and that's what Voices is here for, because we've still got to point out that, you know, I don't want to go in and have to fight every year or be at risk of it being docked every year or having to prove why I still need the therapies every year. I'm happy with it where it is at the moment, and I'm hoping I can go in at the end of the year and go, I want the same plan next year. Yeah. Well, it should be that easy, right? But I don't think it's going to be that easy, and that's
and it just depends who you're talking to, you know, the amount of knowledge that they've got, and it'd be good if it was the same planner, but see how you go.
It's the planner lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my phone.
Whoa. Phone's going. It's all good.
Which is unfortunate. That's actually our NDIA chick, Justine.
So the NDIS is ringing you right now?
Yeah, well, she organises our transport for the group. I'll ring her back later. Yeah, she's
nice.
organising June. So we're going to Melbourne
That's
in
good.
June.
All right. Thanks, Justine, for ringing, interrupting, whatever.
That's all right. If we'll tell her like she makes it onto the podcast.
Yeah, cheers. Okay. So I want to jump into a little about... sorry. I think I might take a sip of water too quick.
Yeah, we've been talking too much.
Righto. Say yourself. So, Steph, what does Steph do in a downtime? Or just for fun or chilling out? Like, now that you're on the coast, you're immersed in this new space, surrounded by water.
Yeah.
God's country. You hear that? Yeah. Are you on board with that?
Am I bored with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as active as I used to be.
Yeah.
But grew up going to church. Did 2 communions because I have one parent that's Church of England and one that's Catholic. So that's fun.
Yeah. So what do you generally do up here what do you do on weekends? Like, do you get out and about, like to the beaches or some of the scenes, restaurants, like?
Well, in summer, I love the beach. So I came up here to go to the beach and I'm so thankful. Well, they got some beach mats at Tawoon Bay Beach now, but the one on the way to Budgie Boy, that has a ramp. So
Lakes Beach
is good. So
thanks to the crew out there building that platform as well.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and there's a disabled toilet there, and like it's pretty close to the sand. So
they got beach wheelchairs there as well at Lakes Beach.
Yeah. So, but I'm lucky that I could still crutch around.
Do you crutch down to the water
I can crutch down to the water. I don't really go in the waves because they're too forceful, so I kind of sit on the edge. I'm a wade in water, get the salt on your person, and then go lie in the sun and get a good tan. So if you see me in the summer, I'll have a good tan, and I go with my mate Adam to the beach a bit. We went to Terrigal as well. Oh my God, we went to Terrigal on Australia Day, and got caught with like all the tourists, and like
it gets crazy down there.
And I'm like, oh, there's a ramp there. We could get down there. That's great. There's like no stairs, that didn't work out that well. So note on Australia Day, don't go to the beach. But no, I'm a really avid quizzer. I go to trivia every Thursday night. We also go to the Naughty Bingo once a month. That's down at Wyong Milk Bar at Allison Road.
It's great there. I love it down there.
Yeah, that's good. Accessible too. It's got a ramp up the back. Hang out with voice peeps a lot. So we have meetings, but go out for coffee afterwards. We have a social night once a month, but I even hang out with them at other times.
Where do you do the social nights? You discuss that in a meeting and then just meet up
we
wherever?
usually pick different venues, alternating between north and south, but usually like an RSL or something, that's...
Are they always accessible?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we make sure they are. So we've had a few now. So, and they've all been accessible places. So that's good. And then, as I said before, I go to a lot of music events. My music taste is really strange. So I did like music at school, and I play guitar, a bit of a multi-instrumentalist. I did flute, guitar, piano, clarinet, and trombone for a little while at school.
Whoa, settle down.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
Don't play as much anymore, really. But I like to attend lots of things, but it ranges from me liking musicals to like rock and going to music festivals and stuff like that. So
that's great.
It's really quite vast. So last Friday was Human Nature of all groups. So I took my sister, that was her birthday present because she loved them, but she had a great time. So yeah, that was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I hang out with I've got a group of girlfriends in Sydney. We usually try and meet up once a month or once every 2 months, just to catch up for coffee and be a peer support group of girls with each other. We're not an official group, but we're
just a group of friends.
Yeah.
But like up on the coast, like the community itself and friends and whatnot, you've found it like a good place to settle up here and just a camaraderie around the people that you're hanging around.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I found such a good group of friends in such a small period of time, and I'm so thankful that my friend Emma, shout out to Emma, invited me to this group that would eventually become Voiced, because I've met some amazing people through it. Whether they're in the group or not, I've still been kept in contact, be able to meet the community, and I haven't really had that sense of community before. Like, you know, like Western Sydney is a big place, it's busy, it's hustle bustle, it's hard. Everyone lives in their little
silos,
in their little brick houses on the hillside, and kind of will keep to themselves, and they're really busy. I had a good family network in northwest Sydney, but this is the first time I've had a really good social network, proper one that I could call a community.
That's
so
awesome.
It's good.
So have you ever had one of those, you know, being in a chair and having a disability, you know, where you've been at an event or restaurant, out and about in general, and ever had one of those, oh, really moments, you know, from an able-bodied person, like where they've approached you and said something outlandish and you're like, come on, seriously?
Yeah.
Have you ever had one of those?
So speak about that group of girls. We went to the Epping Club, so that's in Sydney, and we're all having dinner, and this like 60-year-old lady comes up to us and goes, It's so good to see a group like you out together. She goes, how did you all get here? And then I just said to her, I drove. Like, you know, like, and she like had that raised voice, you know, like she thinks we have some kind of, just because we're sitting down, that we can't hear her. That was a really moment. Get it all the time shopping with support workers, and they're always talking to the support worker or ask the support worker for a payment. And I'm like, it's my shopping.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm right here. I had my card out. Like, really?
And they're looking straight at your support worker. They're thinking,
yeah, like I can't speak for myself.
You can't speak for yourself. Their brain doesn't work, you know, just because they're down and in a chair. Like they just presume that, you know, what, are they mute or have they got some sort of other disability? Like I've had that when I've been out in restaurants where with my wife or whoever, and where the person that's taken the order, they're looking straight at my wife, and I'll go to pitch and say something, and then they don't reciprocate with me. It's just talking to my wife.
Or they speak about you in the third person.
So you've had the same, yeah?
Yeah, or they speak about you in the third person. So, you know, my support worker Zoe said, we went to like something for council. I went to get a coffee and then came back, and then they go to my support worker, they go, oh, so does she need any special things? You know, like come to me, ask me if I need any special things, I can answer you. Like, you don't need to go to the third party that I'm with, who could be my mate or whatever, just because they're standing up, they can speak for me. So, yeah, no, I find that frustrating.
Yeah.
And because I'm a mixed mobility, so sometimes...
Do people find it unusual when you're in a chair and then...
I could get up.
Yeah.
So I did this like awareness training for council when I first came here. I made friends with Jodie from council. She's the inclusion officer there, and did some training for new employees. And I said, never judge a book by its cover, you know, and it's true of a few people in chairs, you know, or scooters, mobility scooters, that they can get up, you know. Not everyone's going to be able to get up. Like, you know, there's paraplegics, spinal cord injuries, but, you know, people use chairs for different reasons, and just because I could step out of my chair doesn't mean that I'm faking it. And I've had that look of like,
oh, she can get up and walk.
She get up. What's she do? What's she do the chair for? And my mate Adam, he's similar. You'll probably meet him soon. He's similar level of spina bifida and has needed it to use the chair more with age as well.
Okay.
So, you know, it's endurance, and for me, if I walk any more than like 20 metres, 50 metres, it's pain, you know. So you're not going to put myself through pain and drag myself through coals just because you think that I shouldn't be in the chair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And bugger, I don't care what they think. They can stare at me all they want in the car park.
That's it.
But yeah.
Oh, and
It's pretty
talking about car parks and disability car parks. That's another story. But
it's always taken up by the oldies. Lake Haven shops always taken up by the oldies. You can never get a disabled park, and there's that downstairs bit where there's no lift.
Yeah, the bit I get frustrated with that, with disability parks, especially people that are in wheelchairs.
That need the space.
But people don't realise that if all those car spots are taken up by P-platers or people that don't have the disability parking stickers within their cars, and you've got someone 5 rows back, that, you know, that's the only park they could get that's in a wheelchair, and then it might take them 5 minutes to get out of the car because they're leaning out. They got to pull their wheelchair out. They got to put it together.
Can't get out.
And then they got to, you know, it might be raining too.
Yeah.
You know, and then they got to get in their chair and then get rained on when they could have been at the front. Like, yeah, they're still going to get rained on, but they're a lot closer, being in a spot where they should be. And because it is for that person with a disability, getting in the chair and wheeling in the shops.
It's wider for us. Like for me, I can't.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you get stuck in. Like if I have to use a normal spot, you get stuck in. I can't get out with my crutches. I'm nearly bloody scrape the thing. Or if my chair's got to be brought around, it doesn't fit. So
it's frustrating.
People just don't get it.
Nope.
They just don't get it.
So here you work in the poll booths this weekend, yeah? So
I am. So
federal election, who do you think the next PM's going to be?
It's going to be so close. I think that middle blank.
Bill Shorten.
Bill Shorten. I think Bill Shorten's going to pull it off because he only needs a 2% swing nationwide to pull it off. I think he can pull it off, but the minor parties in play here are going to make the Senate look like, you know, what's the Galactic Senate from Star Wars, you know, where there's like all aliens from different planets. That's going to be interesting because I think nationally we're going to have a lot of minor parties, a move from the Nationals to the shooters and fishers. There's a lot of unhappy farmers out there because of drought.
Oh, yeah.
Murray-Darling.
The water's all dried
Adani. Like the Nationals are done and dusted, which means the coalition could be done and dusted. Who knows? So it's going to be a very interesting night, which is part of the reason, not only because I wanted a little bit of play money because I need a new TV, but which is, you know, what these little jobs do for me at the moment. But I also wanted to keep myself busy on election night, so I would be just watching the TV and being depressed. So we count the votes through till 10 o'clock or something. And so hopefully I'll be able to go home and then there'll be a result. But, you know,
we'll see
we're
where
people
it
with
goes.
Disability. We suck it up. We deal with whoever's we've got to deal with and advocate for who.
Boom, there's the phone again. Is it the NDIS again calling you?
No.
You're good.
The funny thing is, though, I turned it off. Oh, no, I didn't. It's on mute now. There we go. Yes, I don't know. I think Shorten will pull it off, but the Senate's going to be interesting. So it's one thing to win government, and another thing to be able to get everything you promised through. So anyway,
see where it goes. Okay, so Voices Central Coast Disability contacts, and individually with yourself as well, social media handles, all that sort of stuff. Do you want to throw that out in the atmosphere?
I don't know. Off my head, yes. Off my head, we have a website, which is www.voiced.org. You can email us at info@voiced.org, so voiccd.org. We got Facebook, www.facebook.com/voiced, VOICCD, running theme here. We're only just on LinkedIn now, so similarly, you could just search for us at Voiced. We have Instagram, that's handle at VOICCD. And am I remembering anything else? Instagram. We don't have a Twitter yet. I'll set that up soon. But you can follow me at Twitter at Rantability. So Rant Ability, RANT Ability. And I'm also on Instagram as @rantability. So that's my two personal ones if you want to see me rant and vent about disability policy. And if ScoMo gets back in, I'll probably be having a big one. So, yeah, having a big rant about a few things, I think.
Oh, geez. So
and
look out election night.
And even if Shorty gets in, he's put 20 pages out of promises for the NDIS, how he's going to fix it. So now we're going to hold him accountable. So both parties have put out that they're going to change some things, Labor more so. And so, yeah, be having an event if they don't. So,
boom.
Got to keep your promises. That's the whole point of election, and then groups like us afterwards is we've got to hold these guys accountable. We can't make promises if they don't want to keep them.
Okay, well, I want to see you getting those rants out there. So, folks out there, if you're listening, tune in to Steph, especially election night, because it sounds like it'll get pretty interesting to see you getting out and about with your rants and whatnot.
Well, this probably won't go out till after the election, so
I know, but
hopefully everyone jumps on and follows me and sees how I've been ranting since then.
I know, we'll be able to go back and have a look at your previous rants, but that's all good. But is there any important messages that you want to leave or throw out in the atmosphere so that might resonate with people out there before we wrap it up?
Yeah, look, the Voices tagline is unified voices equals strength, and I wholeheartedly believe that. So if you're in the Central Coast, hit us up at Voices for Central Coast Disability to join a community that could give you the support you need to find your voice, but also join in a big voice of collective voices. And if you're not in a community with a group, start a group, try and gather as many people as you can. So, because one little person going to your minister, they'll just fob you off, Even if it's a group of people going to your minister, there's power in numbers there, And that's what I found over fighting these systems for 20 years. I've been fighting stuff since I've been at school to get even access to a toilet. Because I could walk, I wasn't allowed to use a disabled toilet at my school. So, it's a lot of fighting, it's a lot of work, but together it makes it so much easier, and it gives so much more power in numbers to the argument and the fight. And hopefully we get to a point one day where we won't need to fight anymore. And I hope that's where we get. But, we've all got to band together because we're one community with one, and there's strength in numbers with it. So
that's it. Solid, Steph. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
It was good.
So,
had a good time.
You mob out there, Central Coast, if you want to get amongst the whole disability scene and, raising, elevating the voices of people with disabilities, get onto Voices. I just lost it then. Voice of Central Coast Disability, because Steph's already put out all the Central Coast links. We talked about the Central Coast links, but I'll be sure to put the links down in the description boxes below on YouTube, and with the audio version you'll be able to hear what Steph's already talked about anyway. And with anything to do with events, is there anything that you want to just leave on there about the events?
Yeah, so we have an events bit on the website, and we also have events on the Facebook page as well.
And that's Voices of Central Coast Disability there? Yeah, it's on that website?
So it's voice.org, VOICCD.org. So it's on the website, it's on the Facebook group, and if you join our mailing list from the website, we'll email you directly all the events that come up.
Again, Steph, thanks a lot for coming. All right, cheers.
Thanks, Jake.
Boom. Righto. It's great having a talk with Stephanie Travers. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Smash the thumbs up. Throw some comments in there. Be greatly appreciated. And if you want to get in contact with me, you can get me on Instagram at streetrollingcheetah, or email one word streetrollingcheetah@gmail.com. And many thanks to Permabil Australia for coming on board as a sponsor to the Keep Rolling podcast, that they're a supplier of electric chairs and other assistive tech. And like I've said before, I've been rolling around in these chairs for nearly a decade now. I've tried other chairs, but nothing else compares. So thanks again, Permabil. And righto, we'll see you on the next one.